Welcome to this week's Bible in a Year readings. This week the readings are taken from the first few chapters of the book of Ezekiel and also the book of 1 Thessalonians. We open in Ezekiel with one of my favourite scenes in the Bible. We read that Ezekiel in the 30th year, in the 4th month, the 5th day, when I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. And Ezekiel was trained as a priest, or would have trained as a priest, but rather than being in Jerusalem, he finds himself in the Babylonian Empire, by a sort of refugee camp, I guess, in the Kebar River or canal. And he might have thought that all was lost, all his training, all his hopes and dreams were lying shattered because he was so far from home. But we find that God uses him in a different way than he'd expected as a prophet, and one of the major prophets. And his message, it comes at a time, this is after some prominent Jerusalem people had been taken to Babylon. This is in the 5 years running up to the siege of Jerusalem and ultimately the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon. And the people were thinking, well, it's just a blip. They'll be back. We'll be home by Christmas kind of thing. But as Ezekiel goes on to say, particularly in the readings that are being done this week, actually, no, the destruction of Jerusalem is inevitable. There are things you should look out for when you're reading Ezekiel. It's rather, having finished Isaiah and Jeremiah, you might be expecting lots and lots of poetry. There is some in Ezekiel, but a lot of it is prose and also enacted prophetic signs, almost, some quite odd and sometimes quite funny ways that he enacts his message. So look out for that. And also as a priest, he does dwell on priestly language quite a lot. He talks about holiness a lot. And talks about place, talks about God's Spirit as well. And there's a lot of repetition, which you might find grating, but it's meant to reinforce certain things, so look out for that. And ultimately, the book does give way to hope, even though there's a lot of difficult things to read in it. And hope is also a key theme in the book of 1 Thessalonians. It's a church that Paul was forced to leave prematurely, and he's encouraged. He finds out about how they're getting on. He's really encouraged by their faith, by their hope, and their love. It's a wonderful endorsement of a church, the opening prayer. And he urges them to have hope, to live lives that please God, and to persevere. And he finishes, near the end of his book, I'll read this out as a prayer for us this week. He says in 5:23, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it." Amen.